Well, folks, today is going to be a fun day. We've got an issue with the 9560. Kind of somewhat of a lingering problem associated with the EGR cooler that went on it about a month and a half ago. I ended up getting the seedings done here last night, and the girls, they also started chisel plowing yesterday afternoon. Sarah was starting to have some issues with the 9560, and we realized that we had engine oil going into the coolant. So Jake is in the field right now, and the field that the tractor is in is the field that we started using the noon spreader here a couple weeks ago. And so the girls have that field all plowed. Tim is going to be heading over the low boy. However, I've got to put the grain drill away quick. We're supposed to get some rain here this afternoon. Then we're going to step on over to where them guys are at. They're only going to be about a mile away from where we have to put the grain drill away. And we're going to help them get that loaded up. And we'll get it back to the shop, and we'll kind of explain a few procedures in which we're going to go through on trying to figure out where that engine oil is entering the coolant. So Jake has got some things figured out. We've just got to try a few things, and hopefully it's not a head gasket, but it's leaning that way. So let's get some things done here, and we'll join back up with you in a little while here. Well, we're going to get this loaded up. Jake is just leaving here now. We'll discuss what kind of a plan he has in place for it once we get back to the shop here. So we're just going to get it driven on the trailer, get it chained down, and we'll get it back to the shop. Alright, we got this back here without any problems. We'll go ahead and get it unloaded, get it inside, start draining the fluids out of it, and get working on it here anyway. So we've got to get our flags off of here and get the chains off. Tim's just getting detached here, and then we'll back it off the trailer. Alright, we've got this unloaded. I ended up draining the coolant out. Jake had another call to go on, and he came back here a little while ago, and I did a few things for a few hours too. Now, what had happened to this was Sarah ended up breaking a bolt on the chisel plow, and she had a code come up saying the coolant reservoir, the coolant was low in the reservoir, or it had a bad sending unit. So Garrett went over, helped her get chisel plow going, and I said, well, take some coolant with you. He checked it, and it was all frothy. And I'll show you a picture of what that looked like up in that reservoir. He said it had white, oily stuff up in there. I said, well, there might be a little bit of residue left over from when we changed this EGR cooler, but it was a lot more than that. So I had him check the engine oil and it was down on oil, and we realized that engine oil was going into the coolant. However, there was not coolant going into the engine oil. So this is about 6:30 last night. Got a hold of Jake here and he did some research. Now what would that be? DTAC? You got a hold of, put a DTAC case out on, or just looked at notes?
Just looked at DTAC case or warranty reports.
So that's the beauty with working with Deere. They've got an inner network of history of problems with this stuff, and I'll let Jake kind of describe what we're thinking, or what he's thinking is going on here.
I'm thinking there's 2 head bolts down in here, and they have some kind of a sealant on them, and it runs in an oil jacket, and they can push pressurized oil into the cooling reservoir, and everything indicates that's what it is right now, because there's no coolant in the base. We drained that petcock on the
side of the oil cooler.
Oil cooler. You'd think there'd be some kind of oil right there, and that's clean. So this is kind of the only logical explanation.
So that's what we're hoping. We're hoping it's just going to be some sealant in these. There's 2 particular head bolts, and once he gets more of this tore apart, we'll show you what that looks like. It is something that is a PIP, and they're paying a portion of this, a good portion of this.
With the hours on this, I think it's close to 85%
of parts and labor.
Parts and labor.
If it was under 5,000 hours, they would take care of the whole bill. So that's Deere, that is.
Not a common problem. I don't want to.
Yeah. So
make people afraid of these. It's really not something we see, but with this overheating a few times, I could see it being probably that's the issue.
Yeah. So what we had done, the oil cooler is right here. We opened that up here last night. They had fresh coolant on it, or in it, and then we also drained a little bit of oil out of the base last night, and that looked like it did not have no coolant. And then this morning Jake got to it and it had fresh oil in the base. There was no coolant present, so that was a pretty strong indication that we don't have any head gasket issues. So we're gonna keep at it here, and we'll join back up with you once we know a little more. So it's that bolt there.
Yeah.
And then it's that one.
The one between 5 and 6.
That's there.
Let me get a 3/4 socket and an extension. Sure, it's pretty tight.
Okay. Let me grab one?
Yeah.
I got one right over there.
All right.
I'll grab it. Look at the Olight right in business there, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, shit. Let me get some better footing here.
You don't want to go off on that.
Yeah. So this.
That went.
On there?
Yeah.
Oh. Ready? Ooh. That's awful tight.
Yeah. Somebody was commenting on some engine they worked on. The torque setting was a 6-foot long pry bar, or 6-foot long breaker bar with 2 men.
Yeah.
That was the torque setting.
This one might be pretty close. Okay, now it's going. Yeah, now it's finger loose. You wouldn't think anything would be able to escape that.
Well, it's got a lot of thread in it, huh?
Really want to clear that though. Maybe I will have to take this rocker off, the whole shaft.
Yeah, what are you using for content? Let me show everybody. Is this your actual timing pen here?
Yeah, this is the one for the cam. And it's got two different settings. You got this one's a little wider for #1 top dead center, and it goes down in here. And then the other one is like 1 millimeter smaller, and that's for the other injectors to set the valves. And then the other side, you got the timing pin for the crankshaft.
Got that stuck in
It only
right
stop
there.
at two different spots. You know, #1 and #6 top dead center.
Alright, so he's going to get this rocker shaft, all these rocker shaft bolts out, and then he'll have to... Do you have to take that all the way out, or can you just slide it to the side a little bit?
We could probably shove it over. Maybe we just loosen it. We still got to take our valve bridges off so we don't lose them.
All he did is just loosen up the rocker shaft assembly there, and that bolt came right out. And then that bolt has got a little different shoulder up top, and that's what they must be talking about as far as running the sealant on there.
I don't know exactly where they put the sealant on the new bolts, but the new bolts are marked, they're blue, and they got a dot in the middle of them, so you know if they've been changed or not.
But you could see, well, I don't know if it's going to show it on camera, but on my side I can see that oil journal.
Can you?
Yeah, I could see it. It's towards you.
Oh, right at the top.
Yeah, right at the top.
Yep.
I don't know if the camera's going to show it, but if you look right on that far side, I don't know, I can't tell from the camera, but there isn't one on your side. Or is there one?
There is one right there too. Yep.
Yeah. Huh. Well, hopefully that's the culprit. But that can't be oil. That must be coolant. Because there'd be oil running in the top.
There's an oil jacket in there somewhere, and that's what. I'll look it up again and see exactly what they're saying with it, but it's this bolt and that bolt.
Yeah.
So not a common problem because I've never done one.
Yeah.
Let me go look.
Yeah. Okay, another culprit that could be leading to our oil contamination could be the oil cooler. So we're going to make a manifold up, bolt that cooler to it, and we're going to test it to see if it's not leaking through from the oil side to the coolant side. which that's got a lot of frothy crap in it.
Like a milkshake.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and start building a plate to go on there to test the oil cooler with.
Good now.
Alright, what he has here is he has the oil cooler off, and we just got done making this plate. And the plate's going to bolt to the oil cooler. We're going to charge it with air on one side. Dump it in this pail of water here. And if air bubbles come out the coolant side, then that means we have a bad oil cooler. We won't know if the bolts work until we get it all back together. So this was one of the things that it was advised to check. And this was the procedure they said to go through to check it. So if anybody wants their oil cooler checked, Jake is going to have a plate that he's going to carry right in his truck from now on. Probably only works on the 13.5 though, but that cooler might get used on, it looks the same.
It might be similar.
All you need is the bolt pattern. Well, I guess you need the 4 journals to, the 4 little ports to line up too, so. Providing I drilled the holes right, which we...
I mean, you eyeballed it, and that's pretty close. We might just have to
ream it a little bit.
A couple holes.
Yeah. Alright, so we've got this all bolted together. We're just going to hit it with some air. And our weld is leaking a little bit here. You feel anything on that hole?
Please, this full shop air, you got it regular?
Yeah, it's okay. Regular there. Here, you can hook this up to see if you get it.
Yeah.
Because it goes so far and then it just rolls over.
It's coming right out of the hole.
It's coming right out of that hole, yep.
There's your issue. Cool.
So we couldn't see it leaking on the bench, but once we put it down in the hole, you could see the bubbles right there coming out of. We do have a, this is just not welded good enough up in there. We could put another pass, but we don't want to screw up that gasket.
It told us what we need to know.
But yeah.
Good.
Well, we got a new oil cooler coming because that was something he wanted. We just wanted to order it and get it here anyways. We didn't want to do the one thing and then find out it's another, or put the oil cooler on and find that it's a head bolt or something. So we'll come back at you in the morning here once we get the parts. It's Friday, so the parts are coming in at 10:30, 11 o'clock or something.
Yeah, before noon.
So, but, well, we'll join back up with everybody tomorrow. Alright, Jake has brought a pile of parts here, and we've been working on this, and I missed the bolt, missed videoing the bolt that he put in, but we got new oil cooler on here, and he ended up putting the new head bolts in, and right now he's just adjusting the valves and everything in the rack there, and he's close to getting this part of it all buttoned back up. We'll kind of show you what the old bolts look like. These are the old ones. They've got a little bit of a shoulder here to them. And the new ones, which I neglected to turn the camera on in time, had a rubber big O-ring right here that seated itself down inside the engine. There is a little bit of a picture on his computer here. and you could see that rubber part on that bolt, and then of course the top of the bolt has got a blue heavy ring on there with like a little bit of a dimple in there. And the reason why they've done that so that if you take this apart, you know whether or not it's got the right bolt in there. That rubber piece there almost looks like a piece of heavy duty loom or something. That's about how wide it is. So he's got some time up in there to spend on that stuff to get the rack all done. We've got some new gaskets, then we can put the cover back on. Then we've got to kind of douche this out, if you will, to get the oily, residuey crap out of there. We're just going to use some Dawn dish detergent, some water, and kind of flush that out. And then we'll put some fresh coolant in it. We've got some fresh engine oil to go in there as well. Alright, so Jake has the overhead done. He's got the valve cover back on there. Now we're replacing the radiator hoses. I've got the water pump off, or not the water pump, the thermostat housing is off, and here is the bottom tube to the radiator right here, and that is full of white milky crap. Now I just took this thermostat housing off, and these thermostats have a heavy like rubber part to them here, and the rubber is all deteriorated just from the mixture of the engine oil being in with the coolant. This is all ripped up here. So we're going to pluck these out of there, and then what we have to do is we have to put this back together without any thermostats in there and flush the whole system out, and then drain everything, pull the thermostat housing back off, put thermostats in, and put it all back together here. Alright, we've got it full of soapy water. This is the first that we have started it. And we're going to let it run for, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. And hopefully it gets up to operating temperature and we can dump the fluid out of it. This is what we drained out of the radiator. Oil and coolant mixed together. Alright, we showed you these thermostats earlier from what we pulled out, and here is the new one. All that rubber had been eaten, and then this has all been advised to change all this stuff per deer. So they've seen this stuff happen before, and if you never took this apart, you'd never know what that looked like. And then where does this stuff go? That's in the oil filter, you know. Hopefully, or no, it wouldn't be in the oil. It's in the coolant system, not the, yeah. So we're going to be able to set this thermostat housing back on there. It is Saturday night, and it is 8:15. So we're going to get this on there. We've got the oil drained, and we've got to get coolant and oil back in yet. Alright, So we've got this all completely back together now. We ended up running some water through it a couple times to get it washed out, and then we rinsed it out, drained the engine oil out of it. You can see the oil on the floor here. I spilled some. And we put fresh coolant in it along with fresh oil. So it is just about 9:15 right now on a Saturday night, and Jake's going to be rolling on out of here in a little bit. We're just going to let it run for a while, make sure we don't have any leaks. Ended up making a plate that sits over the top of the oil cooler here. We just bolted that down, and we were able to check the oil cooler we put air pressure against it, and then we seen some air bubbles coming out of that. You seen that earlier, and that led us to believe that the oil cooler had a crack in it somewhere as well. So this bracket here, I ended up painting it up, and Jake's going to throw this in his service truck. Well, the 9560 lives again. I hope, right?
Time will tell.
Yeah.
I think we got it.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Jake. I appreciate it. If it wasn't for this guy, we wouldn't have been able to get this thing going. We did some quick research and figured out there was them 2 bolts, because I would have said, well, it needs a head gasket. You know.
Yeah, and we would have changed them bolts too. But
yeah, and you would have never known.
No.
Now this tractor, before we bought it, at some point in time had a head gasket replaced on it, and that's somewhat common to have them replaced. And we don't know now if maybe that's all that was wrong with it then. And judging by the looks of those thermostats, I'm hoping they would have changed the thermostats. It's just hard to believe with just a couple days of running it.
I can't believe that just happened.
Just deteriorate them like that. But it is what it is. But John Deere wanted us to change the radiator hoses, the thermostats, just because of the oil contamination of the rubber pieces. So, well, that's gonna do it, folks. We're gonna let Jake get out of here. Yeah. 9:30 on a Saturday night.
Yeah, keeps me out of trouble.
Dedicated John Deere employee right here.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks for watching, folks, and we'll get this in the field here in the next couple days. We're supposed to get a rainstorm here tomorrow, and we're kind of hoping we do, because it is dry out there. So that's gonna do it, folks. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you at the next video.